Whilst Aegon dealt with Harren the Black, the two western kings called their banners and joined their forces. From Highgarden, in the Reach, marched the King of the Reach, Mern the Ninth Gardener. Beneath the walls of Golden Grove, he met Loren Lannister, King of the Rock, leading his own men from the Westerlands. Joining their force, they marched 50,000 men, including 5,000 mounted knights north. Aegon rallied his own force at the God's Eye, commanding only 1/5 of the men of the Western Kings. However, the smaller force allowed for a speedy march, and at the town of Stony Sept, both queens and their dragons joined him. This would mark the only time all three dragons would be used in combat. The battle would take place on the wide open plains south of the Blackwater Rush. House Gardener commanded the centre, House Lannister the right, and House Oakhart the left. King Mern Gardener and King Loren Lannister initially took the upper hand, charging and breaking the Targaryen line. But Aegon, Rhaenys and Visenya attacked from the sky with their three dragons, setting fire to the parched, dry fields surrounding and trapping the opposing force. Over 5,000 men were killed and 10,000 wounded, mostly with burns, in what would become known as the Field of Fire. Of the Targaryens, less than 100 were lost, whilst Queen Visenya took an arrow to the shoulder. King Mern and all his sons were killed during the battle, meaning the extinction of House Gardener. Whilst Loren Lannister was captured the following day, Loren and his bannermen yielded to Aegon, and he was named Warden of the West for his submission. After the battle, Aegon marched south to Highgarden, the former seat of the now extinct House Gardener. Lord Harlan Tyrell, steward of the castle, yielded without a fight, pledging his support to the new king. Aegon rewarded Harlan with Highgarden and named him Warden of the South and Lord Paramount of the River Mander. Whilst down in the south, Aegon learned that Torrhen Stark, King of the North, had crossed the neck with an army of 30,000 men. Aegon and his queens quickly gathered all the houses now loyal to House Targaryen and marched north to meet him. When the king in the north reached the Trident, he found an army double his size waiting for him, encamped south of the river. Some northern lords wanted to attack, others wanted to fall back and fortify Moat Cailin. Torrhen's bastard brother Brandon Snow offered to assassinate the dragons during the night, but with the fate of Harren and the Field of Fire in mind, King Torrhen Stark sent Brandon and his maester to negotiate peace. The next day, Torrhen crossed the Trident and willingly yielded to Aegon, becoming Lord of Winterfell and his Warden of the North. Torrhen would forever be known as the King Who Knelt, but Aegon did not collect any northern swords as a result. In response to Aegon's fast success, Shira Arryn, Queen Regent of the Vale, enforced defences at Goldtown and moved their main army to the Bloody Gate, tripling the garrison at the Way Castles which guard the Eyrie. She offered herself in marriage to Aegon to secure an alliance, as long as Aegon named her son, Ronald Arryn, as his heir. Aegon refused his offer. Shara Arryn still felt secure in the Eyrie, until one day Visenya Targaryen flew her dragon Vhagar to the Eyrie's inner courtyard. Shara found her young son sat on Visenya's knee. The young king asked to fly on Vhagar. After flying 3 times around the giant's lance on the dragon, Ronald Arryn became Lord of the Eyrie and Aegon's Warden of the East. Aegon now turned his eyes to the final piece of the puzzle, the Sands of Dawn. Rather than face the Dauntless Spearmen in the Red Mountains, Rhaenys Targaryen flew above the pass to Vaith and Godsgrace, only to find the castles empty. At Sunspear, the seat of House Martell, she found Mira Martell, the Princess of Dawn, waiting in her abandoned castle. Rhaenys demanded the surrender of Dawn, but Mira instead replied that Dawn would never surrender. With Mira refusing to surrender and the Dornish army refusing to give fight, the Targaryen army withdrew from Dorne, leaving the country untaken. Rhaenys vowed she would return with fire and blood. Dorne would not officially be part of the Seven Kingdoms for centuries. After many bloody wars, they would eventually join the larger realm through marriage. Only one last obstacle stood before Aegon and securing his crown, the faith of the Seven. When news of Aegon's landing reached Oldtown, the High Septon locked himself in the Starry Sept for 7 days and 7 nights praying. On the last, it said the crone allegedly gave the High Septon a vision of Oldtown burning if they opposed Aegon. Lord of the Hightower, Manfred Hightower, had already decided not to oppose Aegon, and therefore House Hightower was not at the Field of Fire. It's speculated this was part of Aegon's agenda when visiting Oldtown in the years prior to the Conquest. When Aegon and his host reached Oldtown, they found the city gates open and Lord Hightower riding out to greet them. 3 days later, in the Starry Sept, the High Septon anointed Aegon with 7 oils, placing a crown upon his head, and proclaiming him Aegon of House Targaryen, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm. This would mark the official start date of Aegon's reign. Aegon announced he would not rule from Dragonstone, or Oldtown like many had predicted, but from the Aegon Fort and the city building up around it over the prior 2 years of the Conquest, dubbed King's Landing by the common folk. The swords collected from the defeated during the Conquest by those who had decided to oppose Aegon were melted with Balerion's dragonfire to create the Iron Throne, to remind the lords of their submission. The Iron Islands fell into chaos with the power vacuum left behind by Harrenhal. Aegon invaded in 2 AC, forcing the Ironborn to submit. The Dornish remained unconquered, but Aegon would try again in 4 AC during the First Dornish War. For now, Aegon's conquest was done. He and his sister had taken control of 6 of the 7 kingdoms. But this was only the start of the battle, and now Aegon would have to bring the fractured kingdoms together to create one single unified realm. Thank you for watching part 2 in this 3-part series about Aegon's conquest. Part 3 is going to be a little bit different to this. It's more of a discussion of some of the areas I had to cut and gives a little bit more detail and context to some of the events. And there's also a bit of tinfoil speculation on my part. The next main video like this will cover Aegon's reign, and we'll also look at him and his sisters more as people. The link for part 3 is in the description and on the end card, and Aegon's reign should be up very soon, probably within the next week. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in part 3.